December 31st, 2003, a tourist bus on a routine European trip pulls up to an official government checkpoint. Among the passengers, a German citizen of Lebanese descent. He sells used cars for a living. He took this trip to clear his head, change of scenery, nothing more. At the checkpoint, after about 10 minutes, the border officer called his name, asked him to step off the bus. He did, and the moment his feet hit the ground, everything changed. He was restrained. A bag was pulled over his head. They started beating him. All of this, in full view of every passenger on the bus. And the most shocking part? This was an official government-run checkpoint. The people doing this weren't gangsters. They weren't mercenaries. They were uniformed state authorities. But the real shock doesn't come here. The real shock comes 5 days later, when the bag was finally lifted from his face and he realized where he was. He had been transferred to Afghanistan. This man is the subject of today's story, and every detail of it is stranger than fiction. The man at the center of this story, he was completely ordinary, not hiding from anyone, not running, not wanted, not suspicious in any way. The kind of person you'd pass on the street without a second glance. 41 years old, living quietly in a German city, selling used cars, a completely routine life, work, home, family, nothing unusual. The reason I'm spelling all of this out, I need you to fully understand that this was an ordinary man with no charges against him, no history, no connection to anything. Now, pay close attention, because the events begin a few days before the trip. He and his wife had an argument, bills, rent, the pressure of daily life. Nothing extraordinary, nothing to suggest this argument would be the last one he would ever have in his normal life. But he needed space, he needed to breathe, so he decided to take a short break. Get away from the stress for a few days. He bought a cheap ticket to Macedonia, a light trip, easy. He packed one small bag, 2 changes of clothes, his German passport, and 563 euros in his pocket. Now, look at his passport photo. You can immediately see he has Arab features. Born in Lebanon, living in Germany since the mid-80s. He prays at the mosque near his house on Fridays. A father, a husband, a car salesman. Nothing unusual about any of it. The problem is, in one specific moment, these completely ordinary details would show him no mercy whatsoever. At 3:10 in the morning, the bus reached the Macedonian border, a routine checkpoint, perfectly normal on the surface. The border officer sat in front of his computer, running passport checks on each passenger. When he typed this man's name into the system, for the first time, in a way nobody had ever seen before, the system let out a strange alert. A red flag appeared. The officer had heard about this kind of alert. He knew theoretically that it existed, but in 2 full years of service, he had never seen it trigger. Until now. And from that moment, a chain of events began that no one asked to explain, no one questioned, and no one verified before acting on. The computer gave the signal, the rarest signal the system had. So they pulled him off the bus. The treatment became brutal, violent, immediately. And all he kept asking, over and over, was one question. What is happening? Why are you doing this? Nobody answered him. Now, a small question for you before we continue. Do you think the argument he had with his wife had any connection to this? Write your analysis in the comments. I want to see how you're reading this. They dragged him inside and sat him in a small interrogation room. No windows. A single harsh white light above his head, as if the room had been designed specifically for this scene. 3 solid hours, same questions, over and over. Every few minutes they'd lift the bag from his head and hit him, then continue the interrogation. And the questions themselves were strange. Where were you in such and such a year? Why did you travel here? Who paid for your trip? He answered in broken English and sometimes German, as frightened and confused as a man can be. He answered honestly. He told the truth every time. But not a single word he said was written down. Not one note was taken. This continued until 6:30 in the morning. And when it ended, don't think ended meant freedom. Ended meant his normal life was over. They bound him. They photographed him naked, bruises visible across his body, put him in an unmarked van with no license plates, and drove him down roads he had never seen in his life. They transferred him to an old hotel on the edge of the city. The building looked deeply wrong. 3 floors of reinforced concrete. Windows sealed with steel plates. Inside, stripped of any comfort or luxury. They put him in room 13. And the room was not ordinary. The door was thick, heavy iron. One sealed window that couldn't be opened. According to what he described, the room or the entire floor, was completely soundproofed. No one else was there. The silence was unnatural. No telephone, no means of communication. Guards rotating every 8 hours, different faces every shift, but the same silence, the same expressions, the same treatment. Who are these people? And what on earth did this man do to deserve any of this? Trust me, when you find out, you will be stunned. Stay with me. The guards, or staff, since technically this was a hotel, were not police, not soldiers, not any official security force. They were regular employees, but they never spoke to him. Not a single word, not even a gesture he could decipher. All he could read from them: open, close, stand, sit. Meals were bread and cheese, twice a day. The bathroom, once daily, under strict supervision. No lawyer, no phone call, not one sentence explaining why he was there. On day 3, the atmosphere shifted. The silence broke. Every 4 hours, a new interrogation session. 3 interrogators who spoke English, but with a strange accent. And the shocking part, they knew every detail of his life. They told him, "You worked at a large car company between 1985 and 1993. Your wife's name is Aisha. You married her in 1996. Your 6 children, we know all their names." The man fell into a different kind of panic. How do you know all of this? He stopped caring about whether he was guilty. The question that consumed him now was, have I been watched my entire life? Stay patient. You'll understand soon enough. During the interrogation, they placed photographs in front of him. His passport photo next to a blurred image of another man. They told him calmly, "We're going to return you to the country you came from." You're thinking, Germany, right? They're sending him back to Germany. No, that's not what happened. He relaxed slightly, thought maybe this would end peacefully. He had no idea the story hadn't even started yet. January 12th, 2004, a transfer document was signed, but he remained detained, unseen, uncontacted, for another 23 days after that. 23 days, watched by cameras, doors opening automatically for bathroom breaks. Food passed through a slot at the bottom of the door. He never saw the hand that left it. He existed, but was invisible to the world. On day 23, the door opened. Men in black uniforms entered, different from everyone before. Their manner, their presence, completely different from the interrogators and the staff who had held him there. After 23 days of total isolation, strangers appeared. They handed back his passport, his wallet, his money, exactly as he'd left it. Even his wedding ring was returned. They said one sentence, "Get ready, you're going home." Then they injected him twice in the front muscle of his leg. He went under, lost consciousness, lost track of what happened next. When he came to, he was in a van, moving through the streets of Macedonia, to a .m. They took him to the airport, put him on a large cargo aircraft. He woke up inside the plane. They told him, "Congratulations, within hours, you'll be home. But first, there's something we need to do." Those are the instructions we received. 7 men entered and began beating him. They stripped him completely, and one of them said something extraordinary. "This is the punishment for a man who prays at the mosque every day." Then came new sedative injections. He went under again, and when he woke, he no longer knew where he was. You might feel like these events are moving too fast, scattered, disconnected. That's completely normal, but as a simple reminder, this man is a Lebanese German citizen who had an argument with his wife and went on a 5-day holiday. He reached the Macedonian border, was stopped at an official checkpoint, beaten in public, transferred to a hotel, held there for 23 days, told everything about his own life by people who had been watching him, told he'd be sent home, sedated, taken to an airport, beaten again on a plane, injected again. And all of this, why? Because those were the instructions. After the beating, they told him, that's the punishment for someone who prays at the mosque. Why was any of this happening? He didn't know. He couldn't have expected it. He had no idea who these people were or what institution they worked for, whether this was a criminal organization or an official state operation. And most crucially, why him? There was also something else wrong. When they transfer a person to their home country, they use a passenger aircraft. So why was this man on a cargo plane? Why was he shackled on the floor? This clearly wasn't over. The plane sat on the tarmac for approximately 8 hours. At noon, it took off. 8 hours later, at exactly 8:46 p.m., he landed somewhere new. Inside the plane, a new person approached him and spoke in Arabic. "You belong to us now. We will do whatever we want with you. And understand this, no one will ever know you exist." After that sentence, the bag went back over his head. He was left bound. An hour later, men speaking English arrived and moved him. As they drove, he caught a glimpse from beneath the bag, something white. He was in the mountains, snow-covered peaks. His mind started piecing it together. Someone spoke to me in Arabic. "I'm surrounded by snow. There's a chance I've been taken to Lebanon." He was wrong. They pulled him out and threw him into a locked room. A massive iron door slammed shut behind him. He could tell how thick it was from the sound alone, a deep, cavernous echo. An hour passed. Men came in, removed the bag, and walked him outside briefly. He saw the building around him, ruins, the shell of an old abandoned factory. They took him underground, 3 floors down, into a cell dug from the earth itself. Inside that cell, it was impossible to tell day from night. They left him there for 25 days. Not a word from anyone. He didn't know why. He saw no one to ask. Every day, food and a bottle of water slid under the door. 25 days. The same. And understand this, one of the most effective and terrifying forms of torture is keeping a prisoner completely unaware of why they're there. The more confusion, the better it works. They don't know who took them. They don't know the charge. They can't distinguish a criminal operation from a state one. Every step in this process was calculated. This methodology was developed in Yugoslavia during the Soviet era, a systematic torture program where every detail was designed to break a person psychologically. Dim lighting, cold air, constant fear, total disorientation in time, the design of the cell, the killing silence. The prisoner is shackled at the ankle with a ring fixed to the floor, not to actually restrict movement, but to make the subconscious believe they are permanently bound. It sounds simple. The goal is profound. Eliminate any psychological sense of freedom, completely, especially over 25 days, until freedom itself stops feeling like a concept that exists in their world. Add to that complete isolation from society, disorientation, constant self-examination, all of it engineered, all of it designed for one purpose: bring the prisoner to the point where every psychological defense has collapsed, so that when interrogation begins, they don't resist. They confess to things they never did, just to make the suffering stop, even if the sentence is death. After 25 days, the interrogators arrived. The session ran for 12 continuous hours, in multiple languages: Arabic, English, German. Fast questions, a brutal tone, and the questions made no sense. Where were you trained? Who sent you? What is your objective? 4 full hours in Arabic. Those same 3 questions, repeated without pause. Then the session switched to German. First question: why did you travel to the mountains of Jalalabad, Afghanistan, in 2000? He was stunned. I have never been to Afghanistan in my life. I don't even know where it sits on a map. The interrogator called him a liar, produced invoices, testimony from people who claimed to have dealt with him in Afghanistan at that time. The evidence was so detailed, so convincingly presented, that he himself almost began to believe he had been in Afghanistan in 2000. The German session continued for 3 more hours. All of it, Afghanistan. Then 2 men entered, Germans. We're not here to interrogate you. I'm going to beat you with a chain, and you are going to count the strikes. The moment you lose count, we restart from 0. I'm going to hit you 27 times. Don't lose count. 3 hours of chain beatings. He never made it to 27. The pain was so extreme he lost count every time. They'd reset and begin again. Something inhuman was unfolding. If they had actually caught a genuine intelligence operative, they wouldn't do this. From the sheer agony, he finally screamed, "Fine. I was in Afghanistan. I'll sign anything you want. I'll confess to anything. Just stop." The man with the chain replied, "I'm not involved in your investigation. I'm just here to beat you." And we count to 27. Understand the scale of what this was. Understand how deliberately it was designed. The next day, They played music. Loud, chaotic, abrasive. The same song, looped continuously. All screaming and distorted noise. Think metal. For a full day without pause. Then a 15-minute break every 2 hours. Just enough to almost sleep. Then it starts again. This technique is designed to fully disable the part of the brain responsible for fabrication and deception. No matter how inventive or creative a person is, their answers become raw and unfiltered. Because the brain is damaged, it can no longer construct. In February, month 2, a new face appeared in the interrogation room. This man was entirely different. Warm, gentle. So gentle that every time the prisoner saw him, he would burst into tears and run to kiss his hands and his feet. This too was calculated. This man was not kind. He was an extraction tool. His job was to take everything through warmth and manufactured trust. He spoke fluent German to create a feeling of closeness and familiarity. He talked to him as if they'd known each other for years, told him about his own childhood in Kuwait, mentioned his mother's name, his father's name, the school he attended. This went on for a full week. Conversations, meals together, warmth in a world that had been nothing but cold. Everything was perfect, except the entire rest of the facility. On the last day, he came in and said, "We know you're not the person we were looking for. Unfortunately, your presence here has created a problem for us, so you'll stay with us a while longer until we find a resolution. Cooperate with me, and I'll do everything I can to fix this." He promised to work on getting him out, asked him to be patient, said the procedures take time. "But who are you people? I can't tell you that." "Then what is this all about?" "You'll understand later, but promise me, everything that happened here stays between us. We'll have you sign documents ensuring confidentiality, and after that, I promise, we'll get you out," he said. "I'll do whatever you need, just get me out of here." That was February 20th. And then the man disappeared. Laugh. He simply vanished for 6 full weeks. Not a word, not a sign, nothing changed. By March, the prisoner had become unrecognizable. Skin and bone. His teeth were beginning to fall out. His hair was falling out, not from illness, but from the total psychological destruction that had been inflicted on him, especially after they moved him to a new cell, one where he could hear screams from other cells, languages he couldn't identify, and in the cell next to his, someone he never saw, but whose sounds he could hear, a rhythmic banging, a head striking concrete, once, twice, 10 times, continuing for hours, then, without warning, silence. The next day, he discovered that person had ended their life that way. The facility disposed of the body without ceremony. This man was a believer. He refused, completely, to take that path. He told himself, "I'm going to hold on. I'm going to see how this ends." March 11th. He decided to stop eating. His goal was to end the suffering he was living through. "I'll do this until I die of hunger." He held to it for 6 days. On the 7th day, they noticed he wasn't eating. The door opened. 4 people in medical uniforms entered. They restrained him, inserted a tube through his nostril into his stomach. The pain was worse than any beating, a rod of fire burning from throat to stomach. They force-fed him, gave him nutrient injections. They did this every day, 3 times a day, for 37 days. On day 104, the man they called the chief entered his cell. When the prisoner saw him, he thought, "This is it. The end. Not release, execution." Because in a place like this, that's usually what a final decision looks like. But the chief was calm, composed. He said, "A decision has finally been made about you." The prisoner braced himself, certain it was death. But the man said, "We can return you, if you cooperate with us. The condition is simple, complete silence. You mention no location, you tell no one. You file no complaint, no lawsuit, no public statement, not a word to anyone. Sign these papers, and you can go home." 8 official pages in English were placed in front of him. He couldn't read them, but the chief said, "Sign them, and you might see Germany again." He signed, not out of conviction, because there was no other choice. But as he signed, something caught his eye. The logo at the top of the document, a logo he recognized immediately, very well known, very powerful, and the recognition shook him to his core. Is it really them behind all of this? After he signed, everything inside the cell changed. A complete 180-degree shift. as if they had brought him back to life. He was moved to a room with a window, a bed, a bathroom, real food, vitamins, medical care, a television to watch the news, soap, a haircut, fresh clothes. What they did wasn't healing, it was restoration, and his body responded. His skin returned to its natural color. May 28, 2004. The cell door opened for the last time. No screaming, no violence, no handcuffs. But the journey wasn't over. It had only changed direction. They took him outside. For the first time in months, he breathed real air, saw the sky directly, not through bars. He heard the sounds of normal human life. He saw cars. He heard people. They put him on a small plane. No words. They flew and landed in a new country. May 29th, 2004. Precisely 35 minutes past midnight, he landed at an airport he didn't recognize in a country he couldn't place. We're stopping here briefly to complete paperwork. But where am I? You'll know soon. They took him to an official office. We can't take you directly to Germany. Passport control would raise questions about where you've been. So first, a formality. He asked, where was I? Afghanistan. He stared. I'm sorry. Afghanistan? Yes. And where are we now? Albania. We're going to create a record showing you took a tourist trip here. Then you can go home normally by land. They coached him on exactly what to say, rehearsed his story. He had been on a simple vacation to Albania. Albania was chosen because it's a country that doesn't ask too many questions, doesn't log much, and creates minimal paper trails. They drove him north for 3 hours. Empty roads, high mountains, small villages. Then they stopped on a dirt road near a village called Kalt. No houses in sight, no movement. And from nowhere, the chief appeared again. The one he was supposed to trust. He reached out and shook his hand, gave him 14,000 euros in cash, returned his German passport, and handed him a white t-shirt that read, Munich 2003, then said one sentence, put this on, walk straight down that road, don't turn, don't look back, just keep walking. He stepped out of the car drove away. 8:07 in the morning, he walked for 3 hours. Then, out of nowhere, a bus appeared. Real passengers, normal people. The bus stopped. He boarded. It took him to the Albanian border. The driver told him, go to the border officers. They'll handle the rest. He went, and completely unexpectedly, he broke down crying. Completely fell apart at the border. A German man, German passport, 14,000 euros, telling them he had been kidnapped, imprisoned, dumped on a road. They detained him, contacted the German embassy. The embassy confirmed, yes, this man was reported missing. They said there was no explanation for where he had been or how he got there. May 29th, 2004. He boarded a plane and flew to Frankfurt. 93 passengers on the flight. When the pilot announced their descent, he started screaming and begging the flight attendant not to land. He was terrified that touching ground again would trigger the same nightmare all over again. But when he landed at Frankfurt Airport, the entire process took 4 minutes. The officer asked one question. Mr. El Masri, where have you been since January? Imagine. The German official's computer screen in front of him was blank. No record of departure from Germany. No entry into any country. As if he had never traveled. As if none of this had ever happened. He answered, I was in Afghanistan. The officer asked, tourism or work? And he broke down sobbing. He said, visiting friends. The passport was stamped. The door opened. He walked out as a regular citizen again. A 3-hour train ride back to his city. He arrived at his apartment, knocked on the door. Nobody answered. He used his key, walked in. The apartment was empty, completely empty. Even the furniture was gone. On the floor, a note, a letter from his wife. It said, I waited, but I couldn't wait any longer. He said later that those words hit him harder than every day of detention combined. The people closest to him, his family, had moved on, assumed he was gone. The reason, when I tell you, will make the scale of this catastrophe hit you all over again. After a long search, he discovered his wife and children had returned to Lebanon 6 weeks earlier. The landlord had evicted them, 5 months of unpaid rent. His employer had fired him after 3 weeks of unexplained absence. When he tried to pursue his rights legally, the police told him, a person who disappears is assumed to have left voluntarily. So you were dismissed and your family was evicted because you abandoned them. This isn't unusual in Western legal systems. It's standard procedure. And now the question he kept getting, why did you disappear? He had no answer he was allowed to give. He was legally bound to silence about everything that had happened to him. He spent an entire month sleeping in parks. He paid fines and penalties totaling 23,000 euros. Even the 14,000 euros they had given him wasn't enough to cover the damage. Through a charity, he eventually managed to contact his wife in Lebanon. His name was Khaled El Masri. He spoke to his wife on the phone. "Where were you?" she asked. "I can't tell you. When you come back, I'll explain everything. Please come back," she said. "I'll think about it," and hung up. With all of this chaos, and unable to tell anyone what had happened or name the institution behind it, 2 weeks later they met at Frankfurt Airport. His wife didn't recognize him when she saw him. He had changed completely. His own children were afraid of him. They didn't come to him. They asked where he had been. He told them he couldn't say, but he swore to them that everything had happened against his will, that it was all outside his control. Eventually, he told his wife the full story, as a secret between them. And that's when the story began to surface. It leaked out, and it became one of the most extraordinary cases of the 21st century, the most remarkable case of forced disappearance ever documented in the modern era. May 31st, 2005, without Khaled's knowledge, his wife leaked everything to the press. The report described the phenomenon of forced disappearance, a massive kidnapping network. Paragraph 14 described a German citizen, identified only as X, who had been kidnapped by mistake, transferred to a distant country, imprisoned, and returned. His name was protected, but the details were enough. The report detonated. Every major press agency demanded an investigation. Khaled hired a lawyer, desperately trying to keep his name hidden, but by then, the case had become a matter of public record. It had to be exposed in full. The German federal police contacted Khaled. A confidential investigation was opened. They told him, "You're not speaking to take revenge. You're speaking so this never happens to anyone else." Within the European Union alone, more than 450 cases of disappeared Arab nationals had been documented by late 2005. A documentary aired at the end of 2005, revealing the full picture. American intelligence was behind Khaled's kidnapping. The reason? State secrets. The report detailed everything. 2 public prosecutors traced every detail: flight logs, hotel receipts, aircraft registration numbers, phone records. At the end, they had 13 names, all aliases, and the truth that emerged, a name mix-up. A CIA special unit responsible for investigating the events of September 11th had been operating for 5 years. Over that period, they had detained dozens of individuals. When Macedonian border guards typed Khaled's name, it flagged as similar to someone else's name, not a confirmed terrorist, a suspected associate, someone suspected of possible links to the September 11th attacks. And on that basis, Khaled was arrested, beaten, and tortured before even being handed to American intelligence. Why? Because those were the instructions. Beat him, then deliver him to us. American intelligence then held him in a hotel in Macedonia while they prepared to frame him for dozens of charges before transferring him to their secret interrogation facility in Afghanistan. The documents and evidence confirmed. From the very first moment, they knew he was innocent. But they needed someone to carry the charge. The things Khaled was subjected to, the goal was to erase his identity. According to sources and psychological specialists, the torture inflicted on Khaled was designed to delete his existing personality and install a new one, to bring him to the point where he was 100% convinced he was a criminal, that he had personally planned the September 11th attacks, so that when they connected him to a lie detector, he would genuinely believe it himself. No deception to detect. He would confirm it as truth, because he would have come to believe it was true. The report confirmed that dozens of other individuals had been arrested, prosecuted, and convicted who openly confessed to being criminals, with their identities completely erased. Why? To close the file, to show the public the criminals had been found. December 13, 2012, the European Court of Human Rights issued a unanimous ruling. What happened to Khaled El Masri constituted torture. and a flagrant violation of international human rights law. The court ordered financial compensation for Khalid, but not from America, because America cannot be compelled by any international body and faces no accountability from any court. The compensation was ordered from Macedonia, the country that handed him over. $350,000 was paid to Khalid, covering psychological treatment costs and general damages. Of course, as they always do, the American administration expressed surprise, said the 13 officials responsible had abused their positions and acted without authorization. We knew nothing about them. They've been suspended pending investigation. But Khalid's case was not isolated. It emerged that hundreds of individuals had disappeared, their only crime being Arab. And for the record, the person whose name was confused with Khalid's, his name was Abdullah. I challenge anyone to show me in what language, in what transliteration system, Abdullah and Khalid could possibly be confused. In his last recorded interview, in 2015, Khalid said one sentence that will stay with anyone who hears it. He said, "They didn't take 5 months of my life. They took my entire life. I'm still in that cell. Because every night, I'm back inside it. It became part of me." That was the last sentence Khalid ever spoke in a television interview. That was our story today. I'm Amin, the narrator. See you in the next video.